In this video, we're going to talk about the algebra topics of the full method and distance. So first, let's talk about the full method. FOIL is an acronym that stands for first, outer, inner, last. And it's a method that you can use when you need to multiply two binomials together. So this is a technique that we can use to help us to remember how we need to multiply each component in these two binomials together so that we don't leave anything out. So when we look at this example question, we can apply our full method. We're going to multiply the first by the first, the x times x, the first by the outer, x times negative 2, the inner 2, 3 times x, and then we'll multiply the 3 times the last, 3 times negative 2. We'll do our multiplication here, and we get x squared minus 2x plus 3x minus 6. And then we'll look to see if we can combine any like terms. And we can combine our negative 2x plus 3x, just gives us an x. And here we have our simplified answer. So using the full method, we need to remember how we multiply with variables, how we use the exponents there, how we combine like terms, and then how we simplify an expression. Now we'll take a look at distance. When we're talking about points on a coordinate plane, we can find the distance, how far those points are between one another. There is a formula for distance, and it's something that would be great if you could commit to memory, but we can remember that we're looking for how far the x values are from one another, and then how far the y values are from one another. We're going to take the difference and square them because we don't want a negative difference. We'll add them up and then take the square root. And that formula looks like this right here. The distance is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So the difference between the x value squared and the difference between the y value squared. Now let's take a closer look at this formula to see where it comes from, and maybe this will help you remember it if you have problems just memorizing the formula. From our bell ringer example, we had 2 points, negative 4, 0 and 0, 5. And they joined together to make a line segment. And if we want to look at the distance, we can plot those points on this coordinate plane. What geometric figure do you see made with our x and y axis and our point? You should see a triangle, a right triangle. When we've used right triangles before, we can make use of the Pythagorean theorem. If you remember that, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. In our case, we've labeled c, that is the hypotenuse, and that is the distance that we're looking for. And our a and b are just, the a components are the distances between the x value and the origin. And here the b value is the difference between the y value and the origin. And we can find those here. Let's go ahead though and we can substitute in x and y for our a and b into our formula. And we see here that a squared is really just x2 minus x1 squared. And our b squared is the same as y2 minus y1 squared. Again, with c squared being that hypotenuse, that distance squared. But we want to find just c, just the distance, so that's why we have to take the square root. So this just gives you a little help on remembering this formula, how we derive the formula. It comes from the Pythagorean theorem. Easiest thing to do though is to commit this formula to memory for the ACT. Let's take a look at this ACT type example. We're going to go back and look at the full method on this one, so give this one a try and then come back and we'll work it together. So we have this expression 4n minus 3m squared times 4n plus 3m squared. What is that equivalent to? So we've got to multiply these together, and we're going to make use of the full method. So we begin with our two expressions here. We're going to multiply the first times the first. Then we'll multiply the first times the second, or the outer. Then we multiply together here our inner values. and then we'll multiply again times the last value. So we've multiplied together each term and the other term. We've covered our bases here. Now we have this expression here that we can do some simplifying. First of all, let's multiply together. Let's do our multiplication. We have to remember about even combining like terms when we multiply. We have to make sure we have the same variable. And if we do have the same variable, we'll add the exponents when we're multiplying. So now we've simplified this, and now we can continue to combine like terms with our addition and subtraction if we have any terms that are the same. And we do. Those two middle terms, the positive 12nm squared and negative 12nm squared, those two cancel out because we have the positive and negative, and we're just left with the 16n squared minus 9m to the fourth, and that gives us answer choice A. So we have to be very careful with working with each of these variables. Pay attention to our exponents, pay attention to our signs. We do our multiplication and combining like terms, and then we're able to choose our answer.